Cool. Awesome. So thanks everybody for coming out today and coming to listen to a talk. And for GDG Johannesburg for inviting me to come and speak today. It's really, really great, the initiative that they're putting out. And today I'm going to be speaking about the state of Firebase in 2020. So this is like an overview of what's new in Firebase in 2020, and all the things that have happened throughout the year. I'm Peter John Welcome, and if you want to tweet at me about my talk or about anything Firebase, I'm at PJ Apples. So just a little bit about me. I'm a freelance engineer, and I focus on Android and iOS development. I do a little bit of Google Cloud. I am a Google developer expert for Firebase, so I do a little bit of Firebase, and I do enjoy every now and then tapping into some machine learning. So I do a little bit of that, and I've done some talks around that. Two things about me that's random. I have a podcast where I talk about mobile development, maybe Android, iOS, backend for mobile, or even machine learning on mobile. So if you want to listen to that, I'm talking with Apples. You can find it on all streaming platforms. And then another random thing about me is that I really enjoy photography, especially wildlife. So this is just a picture that I took, I think it was last week, of some baby eagle owls that were in a tree close to my house. So two things that are just random about me. And yeah, but I mean, you guys are not here really to know about me. You want to know about Firebase. So let's jump straight into it. So Firebase started in 2011/2012, and Firebase was a product that was trying to solve the problem about having data in a database and being able to stream it in real time to your application. So if you had an Android or iOS app, you literally could have the Firebase SDK, and you'd be able to stream the data in real time with a real-time database into your application and across devices. And that was the major product that actually brought Firebase up, and it was something that people were kind of attracted to. But in 2020, Firebase looks a little bit different. So Firebase now has 18 products that falls part of its product suite, as I would say. They have it in 3 categories. They have the build category, which is pretty much for people that are developing stuff. So the databases, machine learning, cloud functions, all of that is under the build category. Then we have the quality category, where they provide tools that help you increase your quality of your application. And then they have the grow category that provides a whole bunch of tools like Google Analytics, remote config, and these tools help you grow your business, make a success of your business, and help you with great metrics to actually grow your product that you might have on the store. And recently, we had the Firebase Summit last week, and Firebase, one of the things that I took out of that was a great mission statement from the Firebase team. And I thought this was really, really cool, which was help developers succeed by making it easy to build and operate apps. And that includes mobile apps, but also web apps. So this is Firebase's mission in order to make it easy for us to build applications these days. Software development is still a hard thing where we're trying to solve complex problems. But if we can have tools and we can have products that are helping us to actually make it a lot easier to get to production, a lot easier if you're a startup, or just helping you grow your business or maintain quality within your business. That's what Firebase is trying to do with its suite of the 18 products that it has today. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be going through a few of the products or tools that have recently come out in Firebase that I think is quite prevalent for 2020 and for developers out there. There's a lot more that I could say, but I have a limited amount of time. But I'm going to start off with the Firebase UI Emulator suite. So this is a suite of emulators that the Firebase team has created that allows us to do Firebase development on our local machines. So as you can see over there, we have on my left, it could be your right, could be your left also, we have our Android emulator, our iOS simulator, and our web applications. And the Firebase emulators that are available is the authentication emulator that was recently announced, which is great. We have Firestore, we have real-time database functions, hosting, and PubSub. And what these allow you to do is for you to spawn up a local version of the Firebase emulator of either the database or your authentication, so you can actually do local development instead of trying to access your database in the Firebase console. So some of the benefits around the UI emulator is, like I mentioned, you can access your databases offline now. So everything is just run straight up through your machine. You can develop locally, and then you can obviously have those changes be put into your database in a production environment at a later stage. The other thing that we can do is that now we can actually run end-to-end tests on our CI. So the Firebase Emulator suite can be containerized, and Firebase does provide containers for that. And you can actually now run end-to-end tests and actually test your Firebase logic that you might have with one of these emulators. So this is a really great tool if you're out there and you're thinking, okay, cool, like I need to maybe have some kind of layer that is like some kind of fake layer, or I need to test with a production database to make sure that things work. You don't need to do that anymore. The UI emulator helps us with that. It obviously helps in increasing productivity so that you don't have your teammates maybe changing something in the database that you were kind of also working on, and then all of a sudden you see different changes in your database. So productivity, it's easy to import and export data. You can also now write unit tests for your security rules using the emulator, which is amazing. And the best part of it all is that testing now doesn't contribute towards your quota on your Firebase database. So if you're out there and you're on the free plan, or you're even on one of the paid plans of Firebase, your quota now won't be eaten up by you developing your application, because you can develop locally. So this is really something that's really, really great, and is benefiting a lot of developers already that use Firebase. So just to jump in a little bit of Android code quickly, we have some dependencies over here that I'm just going to show you an example of how this works on Android. We have some dependencies here. Something that that Firebase is doing over here is that they're using this new bill of materials. So this where you see the implementation platform, that is one version that pretty much holds all the versions for all the Firebase libraries. So as you can see, the dependencies below that actually don't have Gradle versions anymore, because it all gets fetched from the version above. So it will just fetch all the latest versions of all the libraries that you have. So if you're into that, if you like having specific versions for specific things, then maybe specify a version and not use this bill of materials. But if you always want to be on the latest, you can actually just use this dependency over here. And what this will do is we'll pull all the latest versions of anything that's com.google.firebase and then Firebase in front of it. So this is just something new that Firebase is doing, and it's really, really cool. So you can go check that out in the documentation. And to set up an emulator, you have to run it in this the Firebase CLI. You kind of have to just set it up there. So the documentation does that well. But it's just a few lines of code within your Android application that you need to add. So you can add the host, which is going to be localhost, because it's going to be on your local machine. And then you'll have Firebase.use emulator, which you add the host and you add a port. So you can change the ports. So you have to specify a port that it's actually going to be running on. Each emulator, so if you have the Firestore emulator running, or you have the Auth emulator, they all run on different ports. They don't just run on one. So you kind of have to specify a port there also, what it needs to connect to on your local machine. And then you kind of just say, you have to set persistence to false, because Firebase has like a caching layer where when you make a request and you kind of offline, it kind of like caches those things, and then eventually when you get back online, it will then push those changes. So for consistency of data, you could have some kind of like cache there. So this would be a great, this is where you kind of need to just turn this off so that it doesn't get confused about the data that it needs to be pulling from the real database or the one that's on your machine. And that's pretty much it. That's all you have to do to use the emulator in your Android application. So the next thing I want to chat about is Firebase hosting. So Firebase hosting is something that I don't use quite often, but I feel like there's been a lot of movement and a lot of changes within Firebase hosting that can benefit developers quite a bit. So this is something that I definitely feel that in today's world for web developers, this is something that's really great. So the things that I want to highlight here is that recently at the Firebase Summit, they released something called Preview Channels. So Preview Channels is a channel like a development environment that allows you to see your changes, and you can deploy to this specific environment, this Preview Channel environment, before you just deploy to production. So previously you would just kind of like deploy your website, whatever, to straight to the production version of your Firebase hosting. But now there's actually preview channels, and this is something that's really cool, where you can actually look at your changes, give the URL to your testers that can test something, and then from there you can then promote it to then using the production environment to give it to all of your users. So this is something that's really, really great, and I think that this is something that's going to be used a lot from a lot of developers. I do also hope that some kind of like development environment though does come for mobile development also. So hopefully there's something happening there with seeing this on Firebase hosting. Second thing is that the Firebase team also wrote a GitHub Action. So if you're not familiar with GitHub Actions, it's a CI/CD tool that GitHub provides that's inside of GitHub. And they wrote a GitHub Action that allows you to then deploy your Firebase website from your pull request or whatever. As you merge a pull request or whatever, you can use this action to actually then deploy straight from your pull request, where you don't need to go do that manually or do that in your CLI or write even a completely different script or job to actually promote your code by yourself. So there's a new GitHub Action. Definitely go try it. It's really, really cool, and GitHub Actions is cool. So I think that's why the Firebase team chose to write one. And then there's cloud logging for better monitoring of your application. So I mean, if you're out there and you need to figure out like how many users are using my application right now, or how many people are using a specific version maybe of my website, maybe it's a cached version and then there's a different version, or you're looking at some kind of logging. There's cloud logging now that's part of Google Cloud, and there's definitely better stats that you can now get on your website within Firebase hosting. And there's a lot more changes throughout the year, but these are the ones that I wanted to highlight because I feel like these are the ones that are quite important to day-to-day development. So it's preview channels as a development environment, GitHub Actions as being able to deploy, and obviously just being able to monitor your website on a daily basis or whenever you need to do that. The next thing is Firebase Performance. So Firebase Performance got a nice new redesign on their dashboard, and it came with a few new really, really cool things. So we obviously have the dashboard over here. This is the new dashboard, and this is what it looks like. If you are using Performance SDK, you might see that the graphs look a little bit nicer. They're a lot more smoother. And then you'll see on the right, am I right? Maybe your left. On the right-hand side, you will then see that there are these metrics on the side over there. And what's nice about this is that you can customize these metrics that display on your dashboard to any metric that Firebase Performance is pulling in. So previously, you kind of just had these metrics, and you had to kind of like find them. somewhere. Now you can actually put these metrics on your dashboard, and you can customize this for yourself. So this is really great if you feel that app startup time is something that is important to you, and you want to see it improve over a couple of days or whatever, and see that, then you can pretty much add that as a metric. Or if you want to see response times to Firebase storage, you can see that obviously it's green, so it's getting better when uploading images or something like that. You can also then, there's a percentile thing where you can see how a percentage of your users, 85% of people are getting better start times for that. So you can actually do that, and then you still have the date that actually gives you a nice good timestamp of I want to see over 10 days versus I want to see over a month. You can then view the metrics there, and you can still dive deep into your metrics as previously with the Firebase Performance SDK. This is just a new redesign of the dashboard where you can then customize everything to what you would like. Next up is Firebase Crashlytics. So Firebase Crashlytics didn't get too much of an update in terms of the Crashlytics itself, but Firebase Crashlytics now can be streamed into BigQuery in near real time. So this is something that's really, really cool, because sometimes you would wait for the crashes to actually come through, and you would kind of like, there was like weird ways to like export your data. I felt like I didn't always export. You can't just go to the dashboard and figure it out what's actually happening there. But now you can actually export your data to BigQuery, and you can then run custom queries, SQL queries on your specific data. So this is really, really great now, because this can help with a lot better reporting, a lot more better filtering of specific crashes. This will also help you. Let's say you only want to see crashes on iOS 14 or Android 11. You can actually then now filter that through BigQuery, which is really, really great. Something that I also like that someone did a demo of was you can now do cron jobs on your cloud functions that then give different reports at different times. So you can do reports on crashes like you would on any kind of data set in BigQuery. You can now do that on your Crashlytics data also. So that's really, really great. And you can then have reports going out every single week through a cloud function. So that's really, really nice. And then you'll also now be able to visualize your data however you want to. So the Crashlytics data that you see on the dashboard and their graphs, you can now visualize it however you want to, because the data is in BigQuery, and you can obviously write custom queries to see whatever you want to see, and then maybe stream that to a different kind of like visualization if that's something that you're interested in. So this is something that's really, really great, and I think that this is something that a lot of people might start using too. And then we get to Firebase Extensions. So Firebase Extensions is something that's really cool. It came out last year at the Firebase Summit, so it's technically a year old now. But if you haven't heard of Firebase Extensions, they're pretty much prepackaged solutions for common problems. So if you've ever uploaded an image to Firebase and you want to then create a thumbnail version of that specific image. So if somebody opens up your app and they register and they put a profile picture of themselves, then at some point you might use a cloud function to then rescale the image and then put that as a thumbnail version inside of cloud storage. Well, Firebase has these Firebase extensions that already do some of these tasks for you. So like I mentioned, resizing images, exporting collections to BigQuery, triggering emails, and a whole bunch more. And recently at the Firebase Summit too, they then released 2 new extensions, which is detect online presence. So if you have a game or you have anything where you need to know exactly that someone's online at the time, I'm sure if you're like a Steam, if you use Steam for gaming, you know that you can say that someone is online or offline or whatever. This is something that you can use this extension for. And then they also partnered with Stripe. So Stripe, unfortunately, obviously, is not really supported in South Africa, but Stripe is a payment company that do payments, and they have a subscription feature that is now part of Firebase as an extension. And this is really something that's really great. And the reason they could do this, the Stripe team could create this, is because all the extensions that Firebase has created are open source. So you can go look at the code, and you can also create your own extensions. So if you are keen to create your own extensions, or you want to create one of these prepackaged solutions, the Firebase team encourages everybody to definitely go and do that, especially if your company wants to do something like this. And then there's a few honorable mentions. So some of the things that I found were still important, because there's so much that happens throughout the year that we can't keep up with everything. So a few things that I think are really important to a lot of developers out there is, if you are still using MLKit, or if you were using MLKit, or you are still using MLKit, and you haven't moved away to the standalone SDK, because Firebase right now has now deprecated MLKit from Firebase, and is now Firebase Machine Learning, where Firebase Machine Learning is only focused on cloud-provided machine learning that Firebase provides. So that would include the Vision Edge and hosting of your TensorFlow-like models. So all of that is in Firebase Machine Learning, versus MLKit now is its own standalone product. You do not need a Firebase project to use MLKit anymore. And we obviously advise that you move to the standalone product, because the Firebase MLKit is not going to be getting any kind of updates anymore. So you'll be stuck on a specific version. So please definitely move over to the latest version of the standalone product there. Then something that I like, because I like DevOps, is I really like Fastlane. So if you've ever heard of Fastlane, it's a great automation tool to help automate your deployments, or even just tasks in your CI or whatever. And this is something that's cool that the Firebase team worked on, is that they created their own their Fastlane actions to help you deploy your apps to app distribution. So if you are using Firebase, you can actually upgrade your implementation to use the Fastlane action, which is something that I like. It's really, really cool. And it's part of the Fastlane package now. So definitely go and check that out. Something else that's pretty important is that if you're still using the Crashlytics version that uses the Fabric SDK, your streaming of your crashes won't actually be shown anymore after the 15th of November, because that's also going to be deprecated. So if you are using Crashlytics in your Android or iOS application, definitely make sure that you do migrate to the latest version of Crashlytics, the new one, because otherwise, after the 15th, you pretty much won't have crashes streaming in, and you'll think that your app might be doing really great on the App Store, but then your customers might not be feeling the same over there. So that definitely make sure that you do that. And then there's a bunch of new code labs for Firebase. There's a C++ code lab now. So if you're a game developer and you're using C++, and you actually want to use Firebase, there's actually an SDK now. There's a code lab for you to go and figure out how that works. And there's also now one for Flutter. So all the Flutter developers out there that is looking for resources on how to integrate Firebase into your application, this is there's great material now online at Firebase Summit. Also, there was a great talk by two of the developer advocates and how they did a zero to hero Flutter talk, where they pretty much took a thing from scratch, an application from scratch in Flutter, and they built it using Firebase, the Firebase Firestore database. So definitely check out that content. And then lastly, I would say is Firebase Firestore now supports not equals queries. So if you ever use Firestore, you probably have seen that you can't really do a not equals query up until recently. So this is something that has been massively asked for in the developer community, and a lot of people have been really, really happy to see this change and this syntax now part of the Cloud Firestore the Cloud Firestore SDK. So these are a few honorable mentions, and there's a lot more that happened within Firebase throughout the year. I couldn't obviously get through all of it, but these are the things that I felt that was important, and I thought that it would be great information to relay to everybody. So at this point, I feel like this is the state of Firebase, moving from just being a real-time database to having all these products and all these things that are actually making our lives a lot better. So for some resources, if you want to go check out Firebase and a whole bunch of other things, there's the Firebase documentation. I have some samples on how to use the emulator on Android and iOS, so you can check that out on my GitHub. And then obviously Firebase is open sourced. Most of the products are open source. I think there's probably only like 3 of the 18. I could be wrong, but 3 of the 18 that are not open sourced. But most of Firebase is open source. So even if you want to contribute to Firebase, you can do that. There's the Firebase YouTube channel. I've linked some of the code labs. And then obviously Firebase, the Firebase Summit. There's a whole bunch of content there. And Firebase throughout the year, in the beginning of the year, we're doing these kind of meetups. And then they had a Firebase Live event also, where they had a whole bunch of meetups with over about a 4-week period. So I've linked that over there if you want to check out that content. There's a lot of stuff to do with unit testing, about the emulator, about authentication, and all of that. So definitely check that out. And thanks so much for having me. I hope that you do go out there and definitely try out a bunch of these products. And if you want to get in contact with me again, I'm at Pajapals on Twitter. But yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, I'm here to take any questions.